Daisy.
And I'm Terry.
And this is the Monday Mindset Podcast,
where we share things of interest to us and hopefully to you.
So let's get started with episode number 275.
And this week, it's Daisy's turn to share something with us. Daisy, what do you have?
Well, Terry, I have something a little bit different for you. This is a follow-on from my feet episode. Can't remember how many episodes ago that was, but
oh, good, an ankle episode.
No, I suppose ankles come into it, but I think it was Dr. Conley, was it? I think her name was, who was obsessed with feet, and I've become a little bit obsessed with feet myself. But this sort of came about. So this is a slightly different episode in that it's a sort of experiential type thing. So it started with an experience and then I went looking for some information to talk about. But it's more of a sort of open discussion with some sort of various things that I've watched thrown in and how those things that I've watched have sort of impacted the experience, as 'twere. So what is that experience, Daisy? Spit it out. So the experience in question is walking barefoot. As you know, I've mentioned before, the main place that I take my dogs for a walk is a place near me called Guestling Woods, which is a wonderful ancient woodland. Beautiful, huge, majestic oak trees. To get to the woods, I go through a very nice, it's a Norman church, go through a churchyard, which is beautiful itself, and then a huge, great big field. And this is the place, if you remember, that's where I started my couch to 5K up again, running around there. It got, in the winter, it's very muddy and slippery, but dried out, it turned out to be a really nice place to run. And you know how I love a multitasking opportunity. It was great because I did it when I was walking the dogs. And so this is the place that we mostly go, and the dogs love it, and it's a beautiful place to go. We walk around the fields. We sometimes go in the woods, sometimes don't, but walking around the fields. And I suddenly thought to myself, after this episode that we recorded about the importance of foot health, and we were talking about the footwear, weren't we, and the wide toe boxes and the sort of barefoot type shoes. And I talked about how I started off my running pretty much this time wearing these kind of shoes, and I felt that it had made a difference. And I thought, you know what, I should try actually running barefoot. Now, I haven't done that for multiple reasons. The dogs have started going Lila has started going a bit wayward, so I haven't actually been able to do the running. And it's been too hot. I'm one of these people who doesn't like getting overheated when I exercise. I take ages to cool down. I just stay red and hot and sweaty for the rest of the day. So the running has taken a bit of a back seat. But as you know, I've been doing the strength training, so I feel that that's okay. And I do the walking with the dogs. But what I have been doing is taking off my Crocs and walking barefoot around the field and just noticing how great it felt. And you came to mind because I'm pretty sure, and I don't know whether you'll remember, but one of the first conversations we had in Facebook messages when we first met in the 2 Keto Dudes group, and I was trying to remember how the conversation came about, but it was all to do with grounding and earthing, and it was something to do with sheets. It might have been something to do with headaches or something to do with sleeping. I can't remember, but I can remember thinking, this just sounds like woo-woo stuff. I'm not quite, and they were really expensive, whatever they were. I can't remember what it was. But anyway, it came to mind. So I thought, well, yeah, I'm pretty sure Terry's going to be on board with this and probably knows more about it than I do. And coincidentally, also, Coach Amy from the Fasting Method has just sent me a short video and some information that I'm going to turn into a carousel post on earthing and grounding. So I will add that to the notes for you to go and watch. But what I started noticing was walking barefoot. I've always quite liked walking barefoot, particularly on grass, and just noticing how good it felt. And after watching all this stuff about foot health, just being quite mindful about how my feet felt. And I noticed that it was a bit like I sort of, had a bit of a foot massage afterwards, and my sort of feet and up into my calves felt tired is the best way to describe it, but not that. It's really difficult to describe, when you that sort of nice feeling when you sort of feel tired because you've been for a long walk or something. It's difficult to describe, not a sort of fatigued type tired, but just like feels like all the muscles have done some work in a good way kind of feeling. But the other thing I was noticing was that the more mindful I was about it, and this is going to sound really woo-woo, but I was literally getting tingles running up my legs, like feeling the energy. And so it got me thinking about grounding, and the different things people say about that and the contact with the earth. And so I went and watched a few things, and I've just got some notes here about it. But there's a guy I watched, the video is called Toe Off, Barefoot Walking, a Grown and Healthy channel. And he is talking very much about the importance of using your feet to walk. I know that sounds silly, but he was saying in a lot of shoes, keep your feet too flat and don't allow all the movement that your feet want to make. It prevents you from walking properly. And he shows in this video the proper movement is that you're pushing off from your back foot that pushes off, and in particular your toes. And he really goes into the mechanics of it and how that actually is driven from the hips, and how things like this don't happen if your foot isn't able to move properly. And that's why all these other issues can move up your body that the doctor in the previous episode mentioned. And so I'd sort of watched that, and then I go back to walking around the field, and so I'm really thinking of it. And I was thinking about it today, knowing I was going to be recording with you. And just really, the more I do it, I can almost sort of feel all those points of connection on my feet, and really feel all the muscles working, really feel how all my toes are moving and the different parts of my feet are moving, and how my hip is driving it forward. And the other things, like I noticed the real difference in temperature of the ground when the sun's been out or when it's been raining, the humidity or how dry it is, and the smell that creates as well. That smell when it's been really dry for a long time and then it rains, and there's that particular smell, isn't it? And yeah, it's just the impact that it's having, not only when I'm there, but as a de-stressor, calming, mindful, been thinking sort of meditation, editing Coach Jamie's meditation video, all these things sort of get me thinking. It's another thing we've spoken about before, isn't it? Wanting to get into meditation and stuff. And when I mentioned, I think, Claire Pooley in the Sober Diaries, realizing that she was a flow state was a form of meditation. And I feel like, yes, walking around this field barefoot and being mindful, it's using all the senses, and it kind of is a form of meditation. And yes, I really feel the calming benefit from that. And really sort of get into, again, this is sounding quite woo-woo, but I was looking up and realizing how there aren't maps of ley lines, because apparently that's really woo-woo and they're not proven as to whether they exist or not. But I would swear that there's some kind of ley line going under this place, because that sort of tingling sensation I mentioned, I've not had that in other places where I walk barefoot. There's something about that place. I just really kind of feel that connection to the earth, to the area, to the people that have been walking on it for centuries. And like I say, this ancient woodland. And it gets me thinking about the Japanese, and I did look it up, Shinrin Yoku. I have probably absolutely butchered the pronunciation of that, but that's the Japanese word for forest bathing. That's what it literally translates to, apparently, or taking in the forest atmosphere. This practice involves immersing oneself in nature, particularly a forest, to promote well-being and enhance health. And I really feel like that there. And I think of it as sort of vitamin nature is one of the things that I call it. And Rangan Chatterjee talks about this, and he talks about the shapes and the colours that you find in nature, and that they're naturally pleasing to our brain and naturally de-stressing. And Amy mentions in her notes, she talks about the ions, I think, that are produced with water when water flows and all these things. But I think just tapping into that sort of mindful connection feels very, very soothing. And I did do a bit of reading about grounding, and there's one article from a website called Coombe Grove, and they talk about how the earth carries a negative charge, and when we make a physical connection with the earth through earthing, we discharge that excess energy, which in turn is said to have a healing effect at a cellular level. And I've seen people using some gadget or other showing the flow of electricity or non-flow of electricity when you're wearing shoes, and then they do it barefoot. And again, it's going a little bit into woo-woo, but I think there's some scientific stuff that's been done about it. But they also mention in this article, and this goes back to a more sort of solid grounding, excuse the pun, but they say that according to orthopedic professionals, walking barefoot restores our natural gait. And that's certainly something that I've been feeling. And that the padding and structure of shoes can over time prevent us from using certain muscle groups that strengthen the body. And this feeling that I mentioned, this kind of feeling of massaged tiredness in my feet and up into my calves, I don't feel that when I'm wearing shoes. Even, when I've been running, it's very difficult to describe, but it's a completely different feeling. And very pleasant. That I don't, even with my barefoot shoes, I don't get the same feeling in my feet. And they say that walking without shoes can improve balance, because again, to balance properly, you need all those bits. You need your ankle, the flex in your ankles, the stability with your toes and the placement with your feet. And you need to be able to move your feet properly. Can help with pain relief and lead to improved mechanics of hips, knees and core. And yes, again, if you really pay attention, and like I say, watch this video like this guy talking about the toe push off. The 9 benefits of barefoot walking that are listed in this article: it can reduce inflammation, reduce cortisol, increases energy, reduces fatigue, increases healing speed, decreases pain, improves mood, reduces blood pressure, restores balance in the body. And yes, I would back up all those things. I haven't scientifically tested it, but just by the way that I feel, absolutely. And just one more thing, another guy that I was watching, he was talking about the foot to, or the toe to glute connection. And I did Google it to try and find it, because I couldn't for the life of me find where I'd watched it. And they were saying that it's a bit of a myth. But he was talking about how if you sit and you've got your feet placed on the floor and you just lift your toes up, and then you kind of scrunch your toes as if you're trying to scoop up a piece of paper, and that if you concentrate, you should be able to feel that all the way up into your glutes. Like I say, this has been, according to Google, it's a bit of a myth. But he says that if you continue to do it and you really sort of engage your brain and think about the connection, actually what I found by doing it is that the more you do it and the more you're mindful about that connection, it does start traveling further up your legs. Yes, I'm not really feeling it in my butt cheeks, but it's still, there are quite a few different exercises that I've been doing to strengthen my feet and my ankles, because I had a bit of a weakness, a problem in one of my ankles that started when I was running. So I have been working on that. But, with listening and watching these people talking about the importance of your feet being strong and healthy and having that good balance and allowing your toes to spread and all the rest of it, I've just been, really mindful about it. And in doing that and walking barefoot, really sort of feeling the benefits, much more far-reaching. And as you know, anything that improves my mood always gets a massive check from me. But yeah, I definitely find it very calming.
It's fantastic. First response I have as I'm listening is, so whenever that was 9 years ago,
Yeah.
your first interaction with me was, oh, geez, what is this woo-woo woman trying to say? Which is so funny.
Didn't stop us becoming friends, though, did it?
That's a good thing. And I certainly don't recall the conversation, but at that time, I know I was very into a lot of what some people might consider biohacking, getting sunlight in your eyes, grounding, all of these different things. And I certainly, it's not like I forgot those things or gave them up, but certainly, lost my focus in those things. But more recently, I have started following so many physical therapists here in the US. That's our term for it. I think in the UK maybe, or in Canada, you all refer to them as physios or something. But I'm just fascinated. And I really think right now, if I would have chosen a different career, based on what I know now, I would have wanted to do that, because I think it's fascinating what you're talking about as far as the way I understand it. So much about our shoes interfere with our bodies working the way they're supposed to work, the toes moving the way they're supposed to move, all the muscles in the feet that are kind of blunted in doing their job. And then wondering why we have knee pain, wondering why we have hip pain, lower back pain, whatever it is. And so many of the people that I follow now, they break it back down to, you've got to be, and they show these kind of stretches where your feet are flat on the floor, but your toes are up, at a 90-degree angle being stretched, and what that does for the feet, and emphasizing for knee pain, strengthening, I can't think of the word, but the tibulus something, the front muscle in your shins. And again, so many of these things have been kind of distorted in our use because of our inactivity, because of our shoes or other things that we do. And so it's really a cool reminder for me listening to you to really kind of refocus on that. Like, there's so much power in our feet. And, as you're describing it, not just muscle and how that runs through the body, but are a point of conducting energy and things. I've been wearing a lot of barefoot shoes for years. I remember these, they're very thin layer and then just very few straps. And this company calls them running shoes. And all I can think is, oh my gosh, I would catch that front of that and fly through the air, whatever. But I do feel different when I'm wearing them. My feet work differently. My legs work differently. And I think it's such a powerful thing. And then the grounding, I don't do well walking barefoot. I'm really wimpy when it comes to sensory things. Just grass can feel too sharp for me. I'm so wimpy about this. But at that time, when I probably was first messaging you something about this, I used to sit with my feet in the grass as part of my morning routine and get the grounding effect. Obviously not quite the same as walking barefoot, but getting some of that energetic flow from being in contact with the earth. So once again, Daisy, you have reminded me or sparked an interest in me, like, oh yeah, how can I get back to more of that? How can I help restore my body to how it is supposed to be able to work? And, I'm sure it helps you. And I've talked recently about our strength training type workouts and things. And just, talking with my trainer all the time about, oh yeah, we want this muscle engaged. And part of what you said, even about the curling up the toes, even from a seated position, my guess is it's teaching what muscles to fire. And because so much of what we do, we're not engaging parts of our body anymore in the way they should be, that even an activity like that is teaching, it's like waking up parts of our muscular system to fire. And I realized this in my workouts. We were doing some type of push-up thing, or maybe it was a different activity. And I was complaining that like my forearms hurt. That's not the part that's supposed to be doing this activity. it's the shoulders. And because I've had so many problems with my shoulders, my arms are compensating. And so for me, it felt like an arm workout, but it's not. It's a shoulder workout. And it's not until recently that my shoulders started firing differently. And I could did some push-ups the other day, and I could feel it in the muscle between my shoulder blades. I could feel that actually lifting me. And so this whole conversation is just kind of, again, firing me up about getting our bodies to be engaging in the way they're meant to be engaging. And I think so much of what we've learned, like through physical therapy and through other things, is how do we kind of compensate for the lack of all of this? And just your emphasis in returning to kind of the root of helping our body move the way it's supposed to move, engage the way it's supposed to engage. Now, granted, I don't think I'm going to go out walking barefoot, maybe on certain terrain, but I'm super wimpy about this. But I definitely want to pay more attention to this from what you've shared.
Yeah, it's funny. I forget. Some people are kind of funny about feet, and they get funny about, the look of feet and their feet being touched or whatever. I've always quite liked I really like reflexology, the massage, and feel the benefits of that, but have always liked the feeling of things barefoot. So I've always wanted to get my shoes off at the beach and walking on grass and things like that. I'm really wimpy when it comes to some of the harder surfaces like gravel or something, although I do like it on a smoother, harder surface like pavement or tarmac or something. But I have found it really interesting because, of course, there are so many receptors in the soles of our feet. And I think that's the reason why I'm feeling this really big difference. Even though I'm wearing these barefoot shoes, there's still a sole there. Mm-hmm. So to go when you've got nothing and you're really engaging every possible part of your foot. And I think that's the reason I'm getting this just working muscles that I wouldn't, very fine, delicate, mm-hmm. or the receptors, or I don't know what it is about the mechanics. But like I say, this sort of very pleasant, tired feeling, let alone these sort of pleasure tingles from that. But that's a particular place. That doesn't seem to happen everywhere. Or maybe it will now. Maybe I'm just tuned into it. But this sort of feeling that I know that I've been working the receptors and the muscles and the mechanics of how my foot works, or whatever it is, that when I'm walking barefoot, I feel a big difference. So yeah, and of course, we all love something that's free. This is going to cost you nothing. It costs you nothing to take your shoes off and do a bit of, like you say, if you're wimpy about actually walking on a surface, there's nothing to stop you just placing your feet mm-hmm. on the surface. But yeah, I encourage you, if it's a nice surface to walk on, like a sandy beach or some grass or whatever it is, and just have a go and see if you can feel the difference. So, because it didn't come straight away to me. It was like the more I did it and the more I was mindful about it and the more I was engaging my brain into potentially what was happening. But anyway, I just thought that was quite an interesting experience, and I knew you'd have some positive thoughts about it.
Yeah. It reminds me of barefoot runners, and I always thought, oh my gosh, these people are just crazy. And now as I'm learning more about it, it is the natural way our body is designed. It also reminded me, as you were just describing that, around that time, back in like 2017, I was going on a trip to Nicaragua, and I bought some new shoes for my trip, and they were 0 drop shoes. So, more like barefoot, but things that I could wear out in rough terrain. And I was so excited, and I got ready for the trip. And then I started reading all of these reviews about using this kind of shoe. And you need a lot of time for your muscles to adapt. You're going to have some pain. You're going to have to, I'm getting on the plane tomorrow. I hope they work okay for me. But even that idea, how people have to almost train their feet to work the way they were naturally intended, because for so many years we've been wearing really cushioned running shoes and sneakers for, our daily routine or whatever, and actually ways that we might be interfering with our body. So if you start doing this, you might want to give your body some time to adjust like you did, and then you really started to feel that effect.
Yeah, no, absolutely. That if you watch any video on YouTube in the running community, they're talking about it. They say, yeah, you definitely have to transition bit by bit. But because I was starting, I figured it wouldn't make much difference to me to just start that way instead of a different way, which is what I did. And yeah, I've been slobbing around in Crocs and things with wide toe boxes and walking barefoot at home. So there's not that much of a transition. It's not like I was going from, wearing office high heels and really narrow shoes into doing that. So, but yes, good point. It can be a bit of a shock to your system, which, as you say, seems crazy when you're sort of going back to how we're meant to do it. Yeah. But yeah, you can actually get injuries and aches and pains and all sorts of things.
Again, I'm sure in this person's video that you're describing, when you look at just the feet, there are so many muscles and, things extending from here to here. And it's like, I don't even think I'm using any of those. And you start to realize all of those being more activated. It's really cool.
Yes, I seem to remember from the foot video, there was something about 4 like interconnected layers of muscle or something in the foot. So, and of course they're important. It's, it's how we move around. Yeah. It kind of goes without saying, but we do handily sort of forget it by forcing our feet into pretty uncomfortable shoes.
Don't even get me started into high heels and things.
No, exactly. We won't start, otherwise we'll be here for another half an hour just ranting about footwear. Okay, well, until I see you next time, I hope you and everyone at home has a very wonderful week.
Take good care, everyone.